Section 22. Velocity of Graha. Now here we have a table that gives the velocity for every Graha. As you can see, in this column we have the 9 Grahas: Sun, Moon, Mars, Mercury, Jupiter, Venus, Saturn and Rahu Ketu. This column indicates the distance covered by the Graha in a day. This column indicates the time taken for a Graha to cover one Rashi, that is 30 degrees, and this last column indicates the time taken by a Graha to travel once across the zodiac, that is 360 degrees. Sun approximately covers 1 degree in a day. It covers one Rashi in a month and entire zodiac in a year. Moon is the fastest amongst the Grahas that travels around 13 degrees every day. It covers one Rashi in 2.25 days. Moon takes only 27 days to revolve once around the zodiac. Mars has a daily speed of about 31 minutes. Mars takes 45 days to travel in a Rashi and takes 1.5 years to complete one revolution of the zodiac. Mercury has a daily speed of around 1 degree and 40 minutes. It covers one Rashi in about a month and one revolution of the zodiac once in a year. The daily speed of Jupiter is around 5 minutes. It takes almost a year to travel one Rashi. Jupiter takes 12 years to travel once across the zodiac. Venus is similar to the Mercury. Its daily speed is also 1 degree and 36 minutes approx. Venus covers a Rashi in a month and zodiac in a year. Saturn is the slowest among the Grahas. It has a daily speed of about 2 minutes only. Hence it takes almost 2.5 years to cover a Rashi and almost 30 years to complete its journey across the zodiac. Now the Rahu Ketu have a daily speed of around 3 minutes. They take 1.5 years to travel across a Rashi and require 18 years to complete one revolution around the zodiac. I hope this table must be clear to you now. This is a very important table, and in order to learn the Vedic astrology, you shall learn and memorize it by heart. Section 23. Retrogression. Retrogression or retrograde motion of planets, that is Vakri, is an astronomical phenomenon when planets appear to travel in reverse of their true direction for a period of time. For example, when traveling in a car or train, you may have observed that the trees or mountains appear to be running in opposite direction, but in reality we know that they are fixed. Hence it is just an optical illusion. This kind of phenomenon occurs because we are on a car that is traveling. Sun and the moon never go retrograde, whereas Rahu and Ketu are always retrograde. Grahas changing motion from direct to retrograde or vice versa appears to stall for a brief duration, and it is known as stationary planet. Astronomically, retrogression may not be very important, but for astrologers it is very important. Let us try to understand about the retrograde motion using this diagram. Here we have the Sun. This denotes the path of the Earth, and this outer circle is the path of the Mars. Here we have the five locations of Earth at the point A, B, C, D, and E. At the same time, the Mars is traveling at this path. Now, since Earth is closer to the Sun, its velocity is more, and Mars, being on the outer side, has a longer path, and its velocity is less. Now, when we are observing the Mars from the Earth, what it appears to us is very different from the actual motion. Here we have a zodiac, the fixed background of the stars, against which we make the observation of planets and the stars. From the point A, when we see the Mars, it appears to be located here, at point A on zodiac. When Earth moves to point B, the Mars is here, and when we observe it, it appears to be located at this point B. When Earth is at point C and Mars is at this point, the Mars appears to be located at this point. At point D, as the Earth overtakes the Mars, the position of Mars appears to be located somewhere around here. And at last, when the Earth is at the point E and Mars is located here, it appears to us that the Mars is on this point. Now, if you see this path, the apparent path of the Mars as observed from the Earth, it appears that it was moving in direct motion, and at this point it became retrograde. It remained so for a while, then it once again returned to its normal direction. This effect is known as retrogression. I hope it is clear to you now. For the astronomer, Mercury, Venus, Earth, and Mars are inner planets, and the planets beyond asteroid belt, that is Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune, are the outer planets. But for the astrologers, using the Earth as center of reference, Venus and Mercury are inner graha, and Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn are the outer grahas. The inner planet Mercury and Venus are retrograde when they are furthest from the Sun, whereas the outer planet Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn appear to be retrograde when Earth overtakes them in the orbit. Table for retrogression and stationary motion. This again is a very important table. As we already told you that the Sun and the Moon are never retrograde and the Rahu Ketu are always retrograde. Now we need to learn about the retrograde and the stationary motion of the rest remaining five planets. Mars remains retrograde for around 80 days, and when changing its motion from direct to retrograde and vice versa, it appears to be stationary for about 3 days. Mercury remains retrograde for 24 days and stationary for 1 day. Jupiter when goes into retrogression, it remains so for almost 120 days, and at time reversing its motion, it appears to be stationary for approx 5 days. Venus remains retrograde for 42 days and stationary for 2 days. Saturn, when go retrograde, remains in retrogression for 140 days, and at time of changing its motion from direct to retro and vice versa, becomes stationary for about 5 days. Section 24. Combustion. Just like the retrogression, another very important type of motion of Grahas is combustion. As seen from the Earth, when any Graha comes closer to the Sun, it becomes invisible to the eyes. This phenomenon is called combustion or ast of a Graha. Moon, when within the 12 degrees from the Sun, becomes invisible to the eyes, that is on the day of Amavasya. Mars, when within 17 degrees of the Sun, becomes combust. Mercury, in direct motion, becomes combust when it is within 14 degrees of the Sun. Mercury in retrograde motion becomes combust when it is within 12 degrees of the Sun. Jupiter becomes combust when it is within 11 degrees of the Sun. Venus becomes combust when it is within 10 degrees of the Sun. However, when Venus is in retrograde motion, it becomes combust only when it is within 9 degrees of the Sun. Saturn in direct motion becomes combust at 15 degrees from the Sun. Here you can observe that only the inner planets, Mercury and Venus, can become retrograde and combust at the same time. It is not possible for Mars, Jupiter and Saturn to become combust when they are in retrograde motion.